Translog. Deep Space Vessel Manticore Communications Bay. 340 hours. They knew who you were before you were born. I'm sitting in the dark of the Manticore's communications bay, and I have been here for 4 hours now, and I need to say that sentence again, because I am still not sure I have fully heard it myself. They knew who you were before you were born, not as metaphor, not prophecy, not the vague sense of destiny that religious traditions have always offered as comfort in the dark. A program, a system, a classified operation running since the 1950s that could identify the specific vibrational signature of a soul before it chose which body to incarnate into, and was using that identification to track, monitor, and in some cases recruit specific children. I found the reference in a subsection of the Manticore's archive I had not accessed before, buried inside a folder of personnel files. Personnel files of crew members who served on this vessel before I came aboard. People whose careers the archive tracks in unusual detail. People who were recruited for this mission through channels that I'm only now starting to understand. The folder is labeled with a program designation I have seen referenced in other documents. Project Tree. And what it describes changes everything I thought I understood about why I am here. The ship is quiet tonight. That is not always the case. The architects in compartment 000 have been active in ways I have learned to pay attention to. The subsonic vibration that I feel in my back teeth when they are communicating with each other. The temperature drops in the corridor outside the compartment that my instruments track, even when nothing else changes. Tonight, the ship is still. Whatever I am about to find, they know I'm finding it. I do not know if that means I should stop. I am not stopping. My name is Captain Arthur Vance. Deep Space Vessel Manticore, and I have been reading about a man named William Cooper for the past 4 hours, and I need to tell you what he knew. Cooper ran the largest non-governmental intelligence collection operation in the world for years. Not a hobbyist, not a theorist. A man with access, with sources, with the kind of institutional knowledge that comes from years inside systems that the public is not supposed to understand from the inside. He wrote a book called Behold a Pale Horse. He went on radio for years and described in precise detail the machinery of a global control structure. He named names. He described programs. He laid out from public sources and private ones a picture of how the world actually operates beneath the version of itself it presents to most of the people living in it. In 2001, 2 months before September 11th, he said on air, Osama bin Laden will be blamed for a major attack on American soil. It will be used to build a surveillance state. 2 months later, he was dead, shot by sheriff's deputies outside his home in Arizona. He used to say, I am going to keep talking until they shut me up or kill me. And if they kill me, you will know I was telling the truth. I think he was telling the truth. And I think what he knew about Project Tree is directly connected to what the Manticore's archive is telling me about this crew, this mission, and the specific reason this vessel was routed to these coordinates. Let me start with the bloodline, the tribe of Dan, one of the 12 tribes of Israel, the one that disappears from the Book of Revelation's list at the sealed, the one that the biblical record treats as having simply vanished from history. They did not vanish. They dispersed through Europe, became the aristocratic dynasties that produced Charlemagne, became the lineages that certain esoteric traditions have been tracking and protecting for 2,000 years, not for religious reasons, for genetic ones, because the bloodline carries something. Cooper describes it as what the classified programs called non-standard information access, remote viewing, precognition, the specific neurological configuration of a mind that can receive information through channels that should not, by any conventional physics, be open. The official record calls this psychic ability and treats it as either fraudulent or inexplicable. The classified record treats it as a capability to be mapped, measured, and managed. And Project Tree, beginning in the 1950s, was a management operation. They tracked the descendants of these bloodlines born in the 1950s, then tracked their children, born in the 1970s. Cooper describes this second cohort specifically, a generation of what the program called highly developed souls incarnating in unusual density during that decade, children who were identified before birth, monitored through childhood, and, in some cases, recruited into experiments. They were never told the true nature of, "I was born in the 1970s. I have been staring at that sentence in the archive for 20 minutes, because here is what I am looking at: the personnel files of the previous crew of this vessel, the crew that was here before me, the crew that is, according to the official record, no longer aboard. Every one of them was born between 1979. Every one of them has a notation in their file, the same notation, the same classification code that I have now found in the Project Tree documentation. This was not a random crew assignment. This was a selection. Here is the part of Cooper's framework that I have been sitting with and that I need you to hear carefully. He says the elite know who you are before you are born, because they understand something about the nature of consciousness that mainstream science will not acknowledge and will not fund research into. Each soul has a unique vibrational signature, unchanging across incarnations, as distinct as a fingerprint, but not physical, operating at a layer of reality that our physics has no language for yet. And certain families were ones who have maintained unbroken connections to specific esoteric traditions since before recorded history, have developed the ability to read those signatures. They know which soul is coming. They know which body it will inhabit. They know what it is capable of. They know whose bloodline it carries. Now, hold that alongside something I documented weeks ago. The entity recovered at the crash site. The biological analysis I found in the partition that opened when I touched it. The dying being whose last communication was a thought transmitted directly into the mind of the retrieval specialist working with it. The thought was, "You humans do not know your own potential." A being from somewhere else, dying in a classified facility, used its final transmission to tell a human being that humanity does not understand what it is. And Project Tree, running simultaneously, run by the same institutional networks, was identifying, tracking, and managing the specific humans who appeared to have access to that potential, identifying them before they were born, managing them before they knew there was anything to manage. These two things are not separate programs. They are the same program viewed from different angles. The temperature in the corridor outside the communications bay just dropped 3 degrees. I am watching it on the environmental sensor on my panel. The architects know what section of the archive I am reading. I do not know if that is a warning or an acknowledgement. I have stopped being able to tell the difference. I am keeping the door locked, and I am keeping recording. Cooper's book is titled From the Fourth Seal of Revelation, The Pale Horse. Death riding, with hell following behind, given power over a fourth of the earth. He says, this is not prophecy being fulfilled by divine intervention. He says, the book of Revelation is being used as a script, and I want to be precise about what that means, because it is the kind of claim that gets dismissed before it is actually examined. He is not saying the people at the top believe in Revelation literally. He is saying they understand something about mass psychology that most people do not, that a population which believes an outcome is prophesied will not resist it. If you can convince enough people that what is happening is God's will, that the surveillance state, the reduction of sovereignty, the consolidation of power into global institutions is not a human plan, but the fulfillment of divine scripture, then those people will not organize against it. They will interpret every sign of the plan's implementation as confirmation that the prophecy is being fulfilled. They will tell each other that these things must come to pass. They will wait. The slave who does not know he is a slave is the perfect subject. Cooper says this explicitly, and then he says something I have been thinking about ever since. The master who does not know he is following a script is the perfect executor, because the people at the operational level of this structure, the ones actually implementing it, most of them genuinely believe they are doing necessary work, protecting humanity from itself, managing the chaos that would result from the uncontrolled release of knowledge that most people are not prepared to process. Nobody wakes up in the morning and says, "Today I will do evil." They say, "Today I will do what must be done." And somewhere in the distance between those two sentences is the specific machinery of how every atrocity in human history was carried out by people who considered themselves civilized. I have thought about this a lot on this vessel, about the people who designed this mission, who selected this crew, who routed the Manticore to these coordinates without fully explaining why. Did they think they were doing something good? I think they did. I think whoever made those decisions, whoever looked at the Project Tree files and the bloodline data and the records of the 1970s cohort and decided that this specific group of people should be placed on this specific vessel, headed toward this specific location. I think they believed they were making a necessary choice, that the situation required it, that the stakes were high enough, that the people involved would understand, eventually, if they survived long enough to understand anything. This is what Cooper means when he says, they killed the dragon and became the dragon. The original impulse was real. Understand the non-human contact. Understand what is seen, the deep. Understand what the source frequency is and what happens when human minds access it. Somewhere in the process of pursuing those goals, the method became indistinguishable from what it was trying to prevent: control, management. People being placed in situations they did not choose, for purposes they were not told, in service of an agenda that their handlers believe is for humanity's benefit. I was not told what this mission actually was. I am only finding out now in the 4th hour of sitting alone in the communications bay, reading files that were placed in this archive by people who either wanted me to find them or could not stop me from finding them. I am writing it down because that is what I do. I do not know what else to do with it that I have not been able to put down. A section of the Project Tree documentation that describes what the program was ultimately designed to prevent, not to enable, to prevent. The enhanced capacity carried by the tribe of Dan bloodlines, the non-standard information access, the ability to receive through channels that should not be open. The program's concern was not that these children would fail to develop it. The concern was that they would succeed. That if enough of them, in the same generation, developed full access to what the program clinical language calls the source frequency, the specific vibrational layer that the classified physics models describe as the fundamental substrate beneath consensus reality, the effect on the population around them would be uncontrollable, not dangerous in the weapons sense, dangerous in the control sense. A sufficient concentration of minds with full access to the source frequency generates a field effect. The archive's language is careful and dry, but the implication is clear. People in proximity to that field begin to perceive things they were not perceiving before. The managed architecture of what is real and what is not real becomes permeable. Project Tree was not trying to use these children. It was trying to dilute them, scatter them, ensure they never found each other, never reached a critical mass, never understood what they were collectively capable of. And the Manticore crew, selected from the 1970s cohort, routed to these specific coordinates, encountering the cathedral and the architects, and everything that has been happening on this vessel. I think we were the ones who got through. I think someone routed this mission here specifically because we were the ones Project Tree failed to contain. I do not know how to end this transmission. Cooper died in 2001, having spent decades saying, "Look at what is in front of you. It is all there." The congressional records, the newspaper articles, the published plans that nobody connects because nobody is trying to. He was not asking people to trust him. He was asking them to look. And the thing he kept running into, the thing that I keep running into on this vessel, is that the looking is the hard part. Not because the information is hidden, because the implications of what you find are large enough that the mind would rather not have found them. The pale horse has been riding for a long time. The fourth horseman does not announce himself. He arrives in policy language, in institutional structures, in the careful management of what populations are allowed to know about what they are. I want to tell you about the 1989 Los Angeles Times. Cooper cites it. An article published in 1989, a mainstream newspaper, publicly accessible, archived in libraries, titled 10 Predictions for the Next Decade. One of the items on the list described the development of chemical and electronic implants that would allow around-the-clock behavioral monitoring of human beings. 1989, Los Angeles Times. Not a classified document. Cooper's point, the one I keep coming back to on this vessel, and the silence, with the environmental readouts flickering, is that the plan is not hidden. It is published. It is there. The protection is not secrecy. The protection is the certainty that nobody will connect the dots, because the dots are large, because the picture they form is larger than most people want to accept about the world they are living in, because the human mind, faced with evidence of something that large and that organized, and that long-running, finds ways to explain it away. Attrition error, apophenia, pattern recognition gone wrong. The ancient survival instinct that says, the scenario where you are small and safe is better than the scenario where you are being managed. I am sitting on a vessel in deep space, surrounded by non-human architects who wake up when I say the ship's name, having found in the archive that my crew was selected from a classified program tracking specific bloodlines before birth. I do not have the option of the small, safe scenario anymore. Maybe I never did. Cooper died in 2001, with a gun in his hand on his own property, having spent a decade saying, "If they kill me, you will know I was telling the truth." Sheriff's deputies, Apache County, November. He was 58 years old. He saw September 11th coming, 2 months out. On radio, he named it. He named the name that would be blamed. He described what would follow. And 2 months after it happened, he was gone. I keep thinking about what it costs to be right. Not about small things, about the large things. The things that everyone around you needs to not be true. The things that, if you keep insisting on, will eventually cost you something you cannot get back. Cooper paid it. The 12 researchers who independently reached the same conclusions as the DNA report paid it. Amy Eskridge paid it. Jack Parsons paid it. There is a pattern here that I have been refusing to name for months, because naming it means accepting something about my own situation that I am not ready to accept. I am naming it now. The people who get close enough to the center of this to see it clearly do not tend to live long enough to tell many people about it. I am still here. I do not know why. But I am going to keep recording until I am not. And maybe, and this is the thing I have been sitting with for the past hour, in the temperature-dropping silence of this communications bay, maybe the reason the architecture is so invested in preventing certain people from understanding what they are is because it already knows. It already knows what happens when enough people find out. Think about what the source frequency field effect implies. A sufficient concentration of minds with full access to it, minds that have developed what Project Tree was trying to prevent from developing, generates something that makes the managed reality architecture permeable. Not destroys it, makes it permeable. People near those minds begin to perceive what they were not perceiving, begin to ask questions they were not asking, begin to notice the architecture itself rather than just living inside it. The control structure does not need everyone to be managed. It needs enough people to be managed. Critical mass in the other direction. Enough minds pointing toward the source frequency rather than toward the managed signal. tips something. I do not know what it tips toward, but I think the architects in compartment 00 know. I think that is why they are here. I think the faction that drives the harvest, the entities that feel on belief redirected toward them, that need the door Parsons open to stay open. I think they understood this long before the Project Tree planners did. The harvest does not just collect consciousness, it manages the frequency. It keeps the aggregate signal of human attention pointed away from the source. And the architects, the ones who separated from the faction at the moment of the division, they came to this vessel because they found a crew that had slipped through. A crew selected from the bloodlines Project Tree was supposed to have managed. A crew that, against the probability calculations, had developed access to the thing that was not supposed to be accessed. I'm still alive because the architects need me to keep transmitting. The signal this log generates, the specific frequency of a mind that has seen the architecture and is documenting it anyway, that keeps asking even when the asking is dangerous. That signal is what they are here to protect. I do not know if that thought should make me feel better or worse, but I am still here, and the temperature in the corridor is still falling, and the architects are still standing in their pods, facing the direction of the communications bay, and I am still recording Captain Arthur Vance, Deep Space Vessel Manticore. If you are hearing this, wherever you are, in whatever dark or quiet place you are in when this reaches you, you are the signal, not because of your bloodline, not because of when you were born, because you are still listening. That is what they were always trying to prevent. End of transmission.